we have a man that needs no introduction, but we're going to provide an introduction nonetheless. Brion Amour, who's our commercial director of Wabash Marketplace. Brion, welcome. Why don't you give the people just a little brief intro about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. I appreciate the opportunity. I always describe myself as a recovering transportation attorney. So I come to this commercial side of the marketplace with a little bit different lens, but seems to be working fairly well as you try to align commercial opportunities within such a heavily regulated industry.
So, appreciate it. So Brad, I wanted to bring you on. One, I always enjoy talking to you first and foremost, but I think you provide a great perspective of kind of the day in the life of 3PLs in the current state. You've been talking a lot of brokers, wide range of sizes and challenges, and I want to kind of get your take on how everyone's not only just feeling in the marketplace currently, which I think is kind of obvious, but really looking to 2025 and some of the solutions that they're potentially entertaining to just do business differently, to be more competitive and more different, and provide their customers with a different type of offering and solution in the new year. And we'll talk of how your experience with trailer as a service and those conversations has gone as well. But we're going to start with the most important question of the day, which is, what is your favorite snack?
Oh boy, I didn't realize we were going to start that difficult. So as I say here, I was just eating goldfish. So some of that, just as the age of your kids change, some of the snacks in the house don't. So I was just enjoying a nice handful of goldfish as I was getting ready to come on here. So I'll just go with those as my favorite snack. So.
Love it. We're ready to go. All right, let's start it off. With those conversations that you've been meeting and having with brokers and 3PLs more formally, how are they currently feeling in this moment to wrap up 2024, but maybe more importantly 2025? There's been a lot of both geopolitical things and politics in the states that have kind of come and gone now. So I just want to get your sense of like what's the sentiment with those folks.
Yeah, and I think, really just the last couple of weeks, even just coming out of the election, there's obviously some excitement, as anytime we look at freight in a less regulatory environment, that certainly starts to change some things. But I think we have to look back and just see how painful the last couple of years has been. I almost describe it as a little bit of a double dip. So we saw some green shoots, maybe last year, a little bit before, where it looked like there was going to be some recovery, and then it ended up almost double dipping. So I think what it was is we're seeing still some post-COVID kind of stabilization blips, in the freight market. So I think what you're seeing though is we're seeing a little bit more trends back to historic norms, and I think it's a positive. But I think the biggest challenge that we're still seeing in comments from, it doesn't matter if you're a 3PL or you even talk to the big asset carriers, there's still a lot of excess capacity in the market. And there were just so many new trucking companies formed during COVID, and a lot of those have been able to hang on. And while I think no one wishes that kind of, contraction, I think that's one of the challenges, is the market's still fairly oversupplied, and that's what's held these freight rates at historic lows. And so that kind of sets the drop. For them, what we are seeing is, I think, some anticipations that more things are aligning to show us a little bit more of a return. So you start to look to end of first quarter, that's, you getting into that produce season, some of the midsummer, pushes. I think that's where you're going to see some return to recovery, and hopefully the freight rates will continue to stabilize and get back to, a profitable number for the carriers, which in turn kind of helps feed the 3PLs and the brokers of the world.
So with that, what are maybe some of the strategic priorities with, that they're trying to either adopt or, just take on to, again, it sounds like the sentiment is a bit more optimistic. Like what are they going to be trying to do or focusing on to be successful in the new year?
So, I mean, and this is a big piece where our trailers as a service offering does fit in well. But I think brokers are trying to set themselves aside apart from their other competition. So you saw some challenges with large brokerages going out of business. You saw carriers. You kind of see a fleet, or almost a flight to quality by shippers. And so this is an opportunity for differentiated programs and trying to find different ways to diversify your business out of the spot market peaks. And so historically, especially the mid to smaller 3PLs tend to live quite a bit in the spot world. And what we're seeing, as the industry as a whole, is trying to find ways to approach more of the dedicated type capacity, those contract freight contracts, and really trying to take a bigger slice of maybe that shipper's volume coming into that side. So that's what I think we're seeing, as the start of the season is just looking at for differentiated ways that aren't just on price. So whether that's customer service, that's technology, that's being able to have a drop pool, that would be where I would say I'm seeing more priorities on the pieces, and then it's doing more with less. So you had historically you had a lot of people, and they had unfortunately there were a lot of trimming of sizes of teams, and so you're really seeing that push into the differentiated freight offering. How do you set yourself apart? How do you avoid freight theft? And then double brokering solutions is another kind of big focus that the 3PLs especially have to work through, is really just ensuring that quality is provided to their shipper customers.
Yeah. So one item that you hit on there is the trailer piece, and I just want to spend a little extra time on that in particular. Do you feel that 3PLs do they view trailer availability as more of like a key factor to stability and growth than maybe in previous years? I know you've been having a lot of conversations just on like asset utilization and asset light models. I'm just like, what are they saying to you in those conversations?
It's so one of the big keys is most brokers actually operate in drop now, right? They just utilize some of their partner carriers' capacity. But if you think about the typical makeup of their carrier fleets, and you think of it, just the number of fleets that are 20 and under in the industry, well over 600,000 fleets kind of sit in that number. What they're seeing though is if they want to play in that growing part of the market, which is shippers want the flexibility of drop and hook, that helps solve dwell times. You don't have detention nearly to the level. There's a lot of benefits on that drop. So there's some expectations from the shippers to allow them to be more efficient. And what we're seeing from the broker conversations is that they want to figure out how to manage that within trailers they have more control over. So instead of having to say, I'm going to take 10 trailers from carrier X, they want to say, we can provide all these trailers, and now we have our choice of carriers, similar to the way they would typically handle in the spot market, non-drop and hook loads, where you're really looking for the best value, so the best quality at the best price, rather than here you're being kind of hamstrung in terms of how you have to manage your trailer pool. So that's one of the things that I think is exciting, is they try to figure out how they want to play in this market. And there's some really big brokers out there that do a lot of this type of freight. And I think that's starting to surprise people at how much of a growing piece of the industry on the 3PL side is in the traditional, or what we would traditionally call drop and hook or power only.
Yeah. Do they, like, when it comes to because you brought up a good point about, I don't want to call it over reliance or over dependency on the carrier network, but you can have that in terms of assets. Are brokers seeing that value down to the carrier level? Is it hitting home with them initially, or did they see it as something like, hey, I don't, I'm not seeing it, or my carriers could see this as a some competitive offering? I'm just curious as to like what's been the feedback on that front specific to the network.
Yeah, and I would kind of sum it up maybe in a couple key things. And the first is it is different, right? So most of these brokers haven't been in this place. So now you have these added tools. They still have the challenge of the regulatory environment. So they can't have assets if they want to remain asset light, and they really want to ensure they stay in that brokerage space, within the regulations. So it's challenging. The other piece is it's just like anything in transportation. When you have an industry that's really driven off a band of margin, you really have to figure out and get comfortable with, is this something that's going to raise my top line, so increase my access to freight, or is it going to lower my bottom line, i.e. reduce my risk, which gives me a bigger spread on my existing pieces? And I think in the conversations where we really can get to that level of conversation, the 3PLs we talk to start to see the real value that having more control gives them in terms of operating both of those. But it is a walk, it's a crawl, walk, run kind of piece where they also have to get comfortable with managing now a new type of, in this case, the asset, but it's almost like managing two pieces of freight for every load, and then all of the things that go into that. So there is work in trying to figure out it's okay to lose a little bit of money as I get comfortable with our processes and procedures, knowing that that's going to open up more opportunities, give you additional ways to bid in RFPs. So it does take a big picture view. And coming out of the industry we've been in, that's a challenge for a lot, but it's also being in the right time to have these things in place. So as the market does shift, you're in great position to kind of leverage and jump on those things. The other thing that trailers, do drive that's a little different for a broker is, unlike an asset-based carrier, they don't want a lot of excess capacity. And so you really have to optimize the network of the trailer assets that you're utilizing, whether those are your carriers or you're utilizing a third party's assets like those from the Wabash marketplace. It becomes really critical to make sure you're maximizing the utilization of each asset, because the flexibility, you don't gain that depreciation and some of the other benefits by owning assets that allow you to offset some of those use expenses.
So on the RFP piece, I asked Ian Walters this question last week. Are 3PLs communicating that their shippers are starting to almost require that underlying trailer capacity to either even just enter those bids or actually winning some of those new market opportunities that you're talking about, like drop and maybe some of those seasonal projects? Are you hearing that as well?
I think where we're hearing it is there's a lot of educating to say, let us have a seat at your capacity side of the conversation. So
Gotcha.
most really big shippers almost run their RFP process in two pieces, on the brokerage side and the asset side. And so obviously a lot of asset carriers have brokerages, so they bounce back and forth. But that you're seeing a lot of conversations to say, let us play here because we now have access capacity. So we can provide you some of the same benefits, or really even better benefits in terms of overall freight value, in many cases. And so, and I wouldn't even say it's necessarily better. It's more different ways to look at those same opportunities. And I think as shippers look to diversify their risk across, different modes, anything you can do to set yourself apart to say, give us 10 more loads or give us 20 more loads, that it's likely going to require additional assets or things that make the life easier on the shipper.
Okay. No, I think that's fair. And no, I like that. So I do want to get into the trailers as a service offering, and understand how those conversations go when first introduced. So how do you tee that up? How for those that are net new to the concept, how does that tee up go, and what are their initial first impressions?
Yeah, and I know we're focusing on kind of 3PLs today, but I think this part of the value prop of what we're offering can resonate on both sides, whether you're an asset-based carrier or a 3PL. On the 3PL side, it's how do we enable you to have a lot of the same tools within, but allow you to remain in the regulatory regime as a broker. And that was how Trailers as a Service was kind of set up. The other piece, which does resonate across the industry, is how do we get to a thought process that's around capacity on demand? So think about it as guaranteed uptime, loaners, all the managed services are included, but it's structured on a monthly rate that allows you to really balance and spread your costs into your program. So just like you would acquire software tools or other kind of products to support the brokerage, this is an opportunity to look at how trailers could be managed in a very similar way. So pull them when you need them, add the capacity, align the capacity to the opportunities, give yourself flexibility, but understand that you kind of know your all-in price to manage that uptime of a certain amount of trailer capacity.
So what gets them most excited when they, when you're in the room with them? What is it, or items that are kind of resonating and hitting home for them? Let's call it the aha moment.
Yeah. So we'll use the example of maybe a group that typically doesn't use drop trailers now, or they have a limited amount of power only. And what they see is they see an offering that allows them to not have to change too much on their operation. So our team kind of can help couple to their group and take over all of the things that are required for maintaining that network of trailer. So instead of having to rely on a carrier who might pull that capacity when the market turns and they want to use it somewhere else, this is capacity they control. They have flexibility. The other thing, especially on the 3PL side, is the trailers in our program all have tracking. And so we're able to assist them in overcoming, some of the simpler challenges of check calls and some of the other pieces. So they see both an operational efficiency as well as an opportunity to bid and compete on different types of freight than maybe they've historically done before. And I think the hope is that's going to allow them to be more deeper entrenched with existing customers, open them up to new opportunities, and then give them a chance to kind of really show what they're good at, which is keeping the costs where they need to be for the shipper, making sure that that freight is really done efficiently. And then it also ties in really well for if they take on, a complete managed transportation opportunity for shippers. And that's where this whole piece kind of all comes full circle.
How do you help in those conversations? I know the obvious call out to any hesitation is, I still need to remain a broker. I think that's, of course, a given. How do you help them see beyond that, let's just call it, apparent roadblock, perceived roadblock, and really and get to kind of where and how TaaS actually still enables you to do that? But to your point, operate in a more flexible, dynamic, controlled model. Like, how do you help walk them through that?
Yeah, and I think the easiest one for us is we include the cost of trailer liability and physical damage on the trailer insurance directly into the program. And so any of these groups, when they're talking to us, have also started the conversation of what would this look like if I wanted to go buy or lease capacity? And they start to see the overall costs of setting that up. So the cost of managing it, the cost of the insurance, those are just pieces that then really allow them to see that, okay, this is manageable, but maybe only manageable if I can leverage the scale of, say, Wabash's Trailers as a Service program. So we can align those prices to be competitive, but offer a really differentiated offering that gives them the comfort to know they have trailer experts kind of supporting them. The other piece that we've done is we're willing to sit down with them and their customers. So we've been invited to several RFP meetings with our 3PL customers to kind of just give the reassurance of how our program works, how it would work with the shipper, how it would work with the shipper and the 3PL. So they really do get the benefit of understanding that, okay, they do have asset support in these decisions that they're driving.
How do you, I love that. And just diving in a bit further, how do you think, not only 3PLs, I think you can extend this out to asset fleets as well. How do you think they are going, or will they adapt and evolve their strategies around trailer access in future freight markets in the new year?
Yeah, maybe I'll lean on the carrier side for this answer and I think what we're seeing is it allows them to go faster. And so if we can help them stand up a market, so let's say you're an east of the Mississippi motor carrier largely, and now you have an opportunity with a customer that wants you to handle freight, where you don't have a terminal, you don't have maintenance. And so looking for a flexible program that allows you to set it up, run it for 90 days, maybe it's for 6 months, maybe it's permanent because you realize the cost of managing in that market, is different than where your core group is. And so I think that ability to go fast and to go with flexibility is a really unique offering in terms of how the program comes together and lets them see kind of how you balance those two pieces. And then I think the other opportunity, especially is for the asset-based carriers, is kind of balancing that OpEx versus CapEx spend. So there's still some big regulations coming out of California on the tractor side, that are going to drive some CapEx decisions, and where are you at on trailer decisions? And then we have freight thefts, we have other, uptime, you have other balances that you're trying to work. And so that age of the asset, how is that asset maintained? Where is your time best spent? Whether that's for a carrier, it's best spent in their core operating zone. Maybe for the 3PL, it's best spent on optimizing their digital freight, their quality, their customer service, the payment flexibility, those pieces. But, looking for partners that are designed, to build that kind of custom solution as we integrate. And that's where I want to kind of lean on that custom pieces. The program as a whole is pretty standard, but the program is designed to allow us to partner with our customers. And so we become a true integrated piece of how their business is. And we're open to solving those difficult problems, because if anybody in the transportation industry knows, all freight is not created equal. All receivers are not created equal. All shippers, so you have all sorts of complexity, and lanes are different. So trying to be able to manage that complexity is something that we try to simplify, at least from the view of the trailer.
Yeah. Is it fair to say then, because what it sounds like to me is, so TaaS really just, it for both the fleets as well as the broker side of things, it really serves as a complementary integrated layer of capacity that, to your point, it can really be customized not only to their operations, but down to the end customer. How does that differ than traditional leases? Like, what are some of the main call outs that, you're having those conversations? Because I think for some, at face value, it can seem like that. But I mean, it sounds like to me there's more to that than, just, hey, it's not a traditional lease. It's something more, it's something different.
Yeah, and I mentioned the insurance already, so I won't kind of dwell on that point. But I think the other things we do is the mileages are included. They're all smart trailers, so we utilize telematics packages as well as pressure sensors. You have door sensors. You have opportunities there. To perform their new assets as well as our guaranteed uptime. So we have the ability to ensure loaners if a trailer is down, pre and post, trip inspection tools to help them manage damage. And then the integrations that we're able to do with their platform, and all of those are included in the price. So rather than, we have the ability to look at it a la carte, but really the goal is to bring them a total value that sum of the parts, create an offering of just all the things we would want if we were the shipper, or if we were the 3PL, like what would make our lives easier. And that's kind of how we set out to build this product.
Gotcha. Okay, so with that being said, for those that are maybe on the fence about this concept, what advice would you give them about moving to this type of solution? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think step one is give our team a call, give us an opportunity to come in and hear, and we will tell you. And we've had meetings with people where we are not the right fit for you. This is not the right product. And I think that sometimes surprises people in this industry, because we try not to force ourselves into a place where we just simply are not a good fit. But the other piece is, let's get a pilot going. And the flexibility of the way we built our program, it really tries to highlight that ability where we can come in for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and help you stand up a quick program to just see if it works. And, maybe you're replacing a little bit of the drop trailer that you're utilizing a carrier for on the 3PL side, or for that fleet, maybe you're just looking to see, hey, what would this be like if in a peak time of the market, I need to pull on some additional capacity? How would this integrate with what we're trying to do? And then, it lets us both learn what processes do we need to change, and then are we providing the information that they need? So a motor carrier may want different information from the trailers and from our team than a 3PL does. Do we just manage it? How do we manage damage? Like, there's just so many things you have to think about. The easiest way is just get us in, have some discovery meetings, and then let's look at a pilot. Let's start small, because we're confident you're not going to give back the trailers that you take, and you're going to look to grow, and it's going to help grow your business as a differentiated offering.
Well, I was going to ask you what parting words you have for folks, but I think that's pretty well summed up. But if there's anything else you'd like to add, in terms of for those leaders across, carrier network, supply chain, viewing trailer access from specific to a broker in 2025, what would those parting words be for you, and just some food for thought, if you will?
Yeah, and I think, for us, the time spent in learning and understanding that this could take us 2 years to work through an opportunity, but let's get those conversations started, because as we look at our roadmap, anything that we can learn that's going to make us better is worth it to us. And that's, to be honest, we've yet to have a meeting where we haven't learned something. And that's the beauty of this. And then from our side, we can help explain. And if it turns out that standing up a whole asset unit and doing some of those pieces is right for that group, we can help, balance those discussions. And the beauty of, the program is it's meant to be, come back, let's go through the process. Let's figure out those initial meetings and, learn more. And as we continue to grow and add in differentiated trailer offerings, like we're just getting ready to launch reefers, there's opportunities for us to kind of learn together on how different things, help balance, your overall kind of network. And then as we're all going to ride this wave together. So hopefully we all get some things in place before there's too much freight for everyone to manage.
Love it. Love it. Words of wisdom from Brion. Brion, thank you so much for coming on. I know this won't be a one and done. I'm sure we'll have you on again next time, but appreciate you stopping by for an episode of Supply Chain Snacks. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, Jacob.
Yep.
Have a great day.